Hi, my name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm the Vice President for Professional Development Services at the American Institute for History Education. And I'm going to talk to you today about bridging the gap between language arts and social studies teachers with the Common Core standards. It's very important that we engage, empower, and allow our teachers and students to exceed well above these standards. Whenever new standards are put in place, people tend to get very nervous. How is this going to affect my classroom? What are the new expectations going to be? And how do they compare and contrast to what I'm already doing in the classroom? What we've seen with the new Common Core standards, particularly in the relationship between English language arts and social studies, is that the content is going to broaden. In the past, with No Child Left Behind, we saw social studies taking a back seat to the reading of fiction, the giving of speeches extemporaneously. Now, with the inclusion of informational texts in the Common Core standards, historical content and social studies now has a larger role to play. This is going to reverse that trend of teachers having less time for social studies. The challenge is going to be, how do we find a new way to put that content back into our curriculum? So, what is this going to look like? Well, through the inclusion of those informational texts on the Common Core standards, English language arts teachers and social studies teachers are going to have to look at the resources that they use in their classrooms and how to teach students to analyze it. The informational texts largely contain what in the history and social studies we would call primary sources. So, inaugural addresses, the Gettysburg Address, the Declaration of Independence. Those things are going to be vital for English language arts teachers to bring into their classrooms. And social studies teachers are going to have to learn how to teach writing responses to these sources, informational texts, primary sources. What we're also going to see is fiction that now has to have historical content and context brought along with it. For instance, when we're reading The New Colossus or To Kill a Mockingbird, those pieces of literature will not be taught as standalone works. They're going to need to be taught in their historical context. This presents a big challenge that I think we can translate into 4 different models, if you will. The first model is going to be for that non-departmentalized teacher, typically in the K through 6 classroom. The second model is going to be the departmentalized English language arts teacher. We typically see that in grades 6 to 12. Then we're going to look at the departmentalized history and social studies teacher. Finally, we're going to take a look at that collaborative team of English language arts, history, and social studies. So, the non-departmentalized K through 6 classroom. The characteristics of this model are typically that the classroom teacher is responsible for both language arts and history in their classroom. They may not have a deep-rooted connection with historical content. Their last experience with it may be in survey courses in their undergraduate experience. Basic U.S. History 1, U.S. History 2, and, depending on the curriculum of their college, the last place they may have seen history at a substantive level may have been their own high school experience. So the challenge that we face is going to be, how do we deliver professional development that is rich in historical content, well, at least rich enough to give them the basics that surround the documents that they're going to teach, and how do we empower the elementary, the K through 6 teacher? How do we empower them to analyze the informational texts, those historic documents that they're going to have to bring back into their classroom? That's why it's going to be vital to provide professional development in that area. They will absolutely need help with the historical content and ways to analyze those documents. The next model is that departmentalized English language arts teacher that we typically see grades 6 through 12. They are probably well versed in the literature and how to analyze for protagonist, antagonist, archetypes. What they're going to need support in is the historical context that surrounds those documents. They're going to need ways to effectively analyze historical text. So probably a basic amount of content in their professional development and greater collaboration with history, social studies teachers. That way, they can seamlessly integrate those informational texts into their content. They're probably doing it to some degree, but we just need to give them greater support with regard to the content. The next model that we see is going to be that departmentalized history, social studies classroom teacher that more often than not has been a history major, so they're well versed in the content. Where they are going to need support is both in analyzing text, in realizing what literary pieces could be fit into their curriculum, and how to teach writing in the content area. This is probably something in their undergraduate experience they didn't have a lot of experience with. Maybe 1 or 2 classes that dealt with reading and writing in the content area. They're going to need support in implementing that to a larger degree. They will be able to seamlessly integrate the literature surrounding the history content that they're teaching into their classroom. So for instance, when they're teaching about things like slavery to Jim Crow to civil rights, and they're trying to infuse To Kill a Mockingbird into that narrative, they're going to be able to successfully do that if we help them be able to analyze literature and transfer that into their classroom. The last model that is probably the most successful way to do this is through the collaborative teaming of the English language arts and the history social studies teacher. Typically, they are working on instructional or grade level teams. They're already communicating about the different things that they're doing in their classroom, and their curriculum may or may not have already been aligned so that what is going on content-wise in the history classroom is happening from a literary perspective in the language arts classroom. If that hasn't been aligned, that may be a place where that partnership needs a significant amount of work. What these teachers should be doing is engaging in professional development together so that they can support each other in ways of content and literature and sharing the techniques necessary to analyze those documents and literature and teach writing in their content areas. Through that collaborative partnerships, the students will see the seamless integration of literature and primary sources and be able to analyze them seamlessly between the content areas. That is vital, because what happens when those things are not aligned is students analyze things in their history class one way, and then they may see a similar document in their language arts class and not be able to transfer that critical thinking. When the teachers work together and have learned professional development together and collaborated in their curriculum, we see that the students are able to transfer not only the knowledge, but the skill sets more successfully. So what CICERO Professional Development offers are curriculum services that will create, audit, and align your curriculum to the Common Core standards. We offer professional development that will bridge the gap between theory and practice, giving teachers the tools they need for successful implementation of the Common Core standards. And we also offer a Common Core Summer Institute that is perfect for district leaders, teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators that are responsible to implement the Common Core and turnkey it to other people in their district. We think that is going to be the successful way forward for districts that are meeting the challenge of the Common Core. For information on our complete line of Common Core professional development services, check out our website at www.cicerosystems.com.